Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy. I'm Jenny Fennell, your host in CRNA. Welcome back. As you can see, I'm still wearing the same outfit. For those of you guys who are watching my YouTube channel, because yes, I do batch these because let's just face it, I don't realistically have time to record every single week. So you probably have already noticed that, but yeah, I wear the same outfit for all of my episodes. Sometimes it's because I record them all in one day. All right, so today we are going to talk about a big question that I get from a lot of people, which is, am I too old to go back for CRNA? And I want to start this episode off by saying, first of all, hell no, because you're never too old to do something you want to do, ever. Okay, maybe if you're like 85, that's probably too old. But no, in all seriousness, I think where you need to start with this question is kind of just be realistic with yourself and run the numbers. And what I mean by that is, how much debt would you have to take on to go back to CRNA school? And how many working years would you have left after you graduate CRNA school? And also ask yourself, how badly do you want this? Like, is this a game breaker for you? Meaning, like, are you so miserable doing what you're currently doing that you either go back for CRNA or you find a completely different career path where you're ready, you're at your breaking point where you're done and you need something different, or you can't continue on? I think that would play into it too. There are plenty, and I mean plenty, of second career CRNAs out there. Heck yeah, if that's you, whoop whoop. I've worked with plenty of them. And some of them, you don't even have to be what I would call old to be a second career CRNA. I've met plenty of students too who just go back, I worked with a SRNA not that long ago that was an accountant, a dental hygienist, a veterinarian, or not veteran, but a vet tech. I've never met a veterinarian. That would actually be, because I know veterinary school is crazy expensive. That would be crazy to go back after veterinary school. Plus it takes a long time. Anyways, long story short, you can be anyone. And I think there's also someone I know who was like a IT specialist who spent like his first almost 20 years of his career doing IT. And now he's a CRNA. And I think he's close to 50, I want to say. But back to kind of what I was saying, doesn't matter where you are in your career. You just have to make sure this is what you really want. And again, just know your numbers, be realistic with yourself, and know what you can afford and what your retirement situation is like. The last thing you want to do is, if CRNA school is going to be a big financial burden on you, you don't want to take on, $200,000 of student loan debt when you only have, 8 working years left. I mean, so be realistic with yourself, run the numbers, know what you can afford. If you can afford to pay for CRNA school in cash, more power to you, and you can get out and work the last 10 years and save up. I mean, think about it, you guys. If you're thinking about numbers, CRNAs on average, this is average, there's lots of variations out there, just so you know, but they on average make about $100,000 more a year than an RN. Now that's pre-COVID pay, because I know some of what they're paying these nurses to do COVID assignments, which is absolutely insane. That's not going to be around for much longer. But I also know traveling's always historically been a good pay rate for nurses. However, do you want to spend your entire life traveling around? Maybe you do. But like me, I probably could have done travel nursing for a period of time. But if I ever wanted to settle down and have a family, I can't really have a kid and travel around unless you want to leave your kid home with your significant other while you go work. And then you kind of miss out on important parts of their life. Like, it doesn't sound, you know what I mean? They need a school system. They can't be moving around. They can't move around every 3 months. So obviously, based on your lifestyle, where you're at in life, what you want of life, it determines whether you can even do travel nursing. But historically, CRNAs on average make anywhere from $100,000 to even $150,000 more per year than an actual RN salary. Now, myself, you want to know how much I made as a nurse? Yeah, you're going to probably be like, what? Yeah. And this was not that long ago, you guys. I graduated in 2009 with my BSN, $24 an hour. And that's after my CCRN. I think I had a boost when I got my CCRN. I remember being really upset. My dad's a truck driver. I love my dad. He's awesome. But I remember he was complaining because they gave him a pay cut. And so he was making $28 an hour as a truck driver. And I remember being like, Dad, like, I have $90,000 of student loan debt and I work in an ICU and do some really gross things. and you make more than me. Like, what is this? Like, what is this? It's totally not fair. So just so you know, there's a wide range of what nurses can make. And again, 2009 is not that long ago. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't think I'm that old yet, but again, I just know, averages here. So yeah, run the numbers, know what you can afford to spend for school, know how much it's going to boost your bottom line, meaning how much is it going to raise your total income. And also you want to take into consideration taxes. So yeah, CRNAs make more, but you also pay more in taxes. Is it going to bump you up to the next tax bracket? And, based on you and your spouse or whoever, again, just know your financial situation. I think that's key with deciding whether CRNA is right for you later on in life. My classmate was 52 when she graduated. She's still a CRNA. She loves it. I mean, I've never had anyone say they regret it. But again, I think you just have to be smart about it. As far as handling CRNA school from an academic standpoint, that maybe it's not even financial. Maybe the finances is not even a thing. You're like, yeah, I know I can afford it. And I know it'd be beneficial for me to spend the last 10 working years as a CRNA financially. But what if I can't cut it academically? That's what you're more nervous about. If that's you, I can assure you that you can. And while I've had students who are older tell me they don't feel like they can, they feel like there is a difference between them and their younger counterparts or whatever. It's not different as in you can't do it, but it's probably different in how much effort it's going to take you to do the same thing. Does that make sense? Someone who just freshly graduated from their BSN, worked 2 years in the ICU while taking graduate level courses, and then went right into CRNA school is still very academically fresh, meaning it hasn't been 15 years since they took a microbiology course. It hasn't been, that long since they took a stats course. So that's their advantage, is they don't need to refresh on as much stuff as you will, being out of school for 10, 15, 20 years. So that's the advantage they have. Okay. But it doesn't mean you're not capable. It doesn't mean that you may require more studying, probably if it's been that long. But a lot of these programs will actually require you to have your certain sciences within anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And I say 5 to 10 years because all schools are a little different. The vast majority will say 10 years, but there are a few schools who want your sciences within 5 years. So you have to research your school early on, because if you happen to want to apply to the school that requires it within 5 years or even 10 years, you need to know early on so you have time to do those courses. And it's usually, don't just go sign up for random courses. Make sure you know which courses they want you to retake. So it's probably not going to be everything. It might be a chemistry, a biology, and maybe an anatomy, pathophysiology. That might be it. But yeah, you want to make sure and maybe even a grad stats course of some kind. But you have to look into your school first, because some may prefer physics, So again, you just have to research your school and know what they want to have of you. And, if you're barely hitting that deadline, like maybe it's coming up on 9 years, but by the time, you apply and interview, you're going to be just hitting that 10-year mark. Just ask them if that's okay. Say, hey, I'm going to be hitting that cutoff here soon. Should I go ahead and retake a few courses? It's never bad to retake some courses, not even retake, but just take courses in general, like a graduate level course, because being out of school for so long, but then having a fresh pathophysiology graduate level course and you get an A, it proves to them that even though you've been out of school for 15 years, you can still get an A in a very hard graduate level science course. That kind of reassures them that you're ready to be a learner again. That, you're willing and able to jump back in academically. So it's never a bad idea to at least have a fresh course of some kind under your belt when you apply to CRNA school, if you've been out of school for 15 years or even 8 or 9 years, because again, it just proves to them that you're willing and able to be a learner again. And that's the other point I want to make. So if it's not finances, if it's not academics, sometimes it gets to be, well, I've been an ICU nurse for 15 years, is that going to hurt me? And the answer to this is kind of gray, because it's a yes and no answer. And not that the experience is not amazing. That is an amazing experience. But the question is, what is that experience? Meaning, like, are you really set in your ways? Are you going to be able to be a SRNA, a student registered nurse anesthetist, in clinical, after you have 15 years of being kind of the top dog, you're the head honcho, you're the top ICU nurse, you're at the head of your game. And now you're down here again, you're an SRNA. And, how are you going to handle that? And having a preceptor who's probably younger than you give you direction, so they're going to be judging this in your interview. They're going to be trying to gauge your personality. They're going to try to say, okay, do they get defensive? Are they quick to kind of like react and get like defensive about something they're wrong about? And I really think it's addressing the elephant in the room. Just like I tell students, if they have a lower GPA or anything on their resume that they're nervous or scared about, if they think it could be a red flag, just address it, like bring it up in a way that's kind of casual. I know I've been out of school for a while, and I know I've been an ICU nurse for 15 years, but I precept students a lot as an ICU nurse. And so, I'm into mentoring. I know what it's like to be a student. I can relate to them, and I'm ready and able to be a student again myself. I don't know what you want to say, but you'd have to try to sell it as you're willing and able to be a novice again, essentially, and someone who's not going to know it all, and someone who's going to have to ask for guidance and support. And taking a recent graduate level course is just one piece of the puzzle. You want to prove to them that in clinical, you're going to be okay as well, because academics is one thing, but if you can't clinically be essentially a student again, they may worry about that as well. Again, plenty of successful SRNAs are older when they start their journey. It doesn't mean, they're any better or worse off clinically. It really depends on the personality. I'll tell you right now, right before I left one of my last positions, a lot of people will say too, like, people will ask me, does more ICU experience make you better in clinical, or, how does that shake out? Because some people who barely have experience worry about not being good enough in clinical, and someone who has too much experience worries about not being good at clinical. And I'll tell you right now, I've seen both ends of the spectrum, where I've seen ICU nurse with barely any ICU experience come in and rock it. I've also seen that same situation come in and they struggle a little bit more from the beginning. Probably more likely to struggle than rock it, to be quite honest with you, and not because they're not going to rock it. They always do. They always do. It's just initially they may be a little more like fresh, meaning like their skills just aren't there because they didn't really perfect them in the ICU. So they're kind of starting kind of with a little more green, but they always pick up on it. They always improve, versus someone coming with, 10, 15 years of ICU experience. They're probably really good at things like IVs and maybe multitasking and titrating drips and those types of things. So they tend to pick up on those things much quicker. Sometimes, again, they can maybe have a harder time handling criticism or direction. But at the same time, I haven't ever experienced that to the point where it's ever been hinders them in their development and their progress. I've also seen, these nurses, like I said, they come in with 10, 15 years, and it's awesome because they're like rock stars. You're like, oh, well, sweet. Because they, again, have all this experience titrating drips and multitasking and managing these really sick critical patients and doing all these different things at once. And essentially in anesthesia, that's what you do. You multitask. At the same time, you're managing the ventilation and you're managing their blood pressure and their fluid and, their sedation. I mean, you're doing all these things simultaneously and taking direct and listening to the surgeon and communicating with your attending and, coming up with a plan and planning for induction and maintenance and emergence. And it's like, you're doing all these things that are, your brain's always going. And so I think nurses who come in with a lot of ICU experience pick up on that much easier and are very quick to kind of run with that. Again, the only problem I could see someone with a lot of experience having is just taking direction and not getting offended, essentially, if they're not correct. Or even if, okay, here's the thing too, I gotta just say this because I'm a preceptor. And I remember being a student. Sometimes you're not wrong. It's not that you're wrong, because there's a million ways to do anesthesia, but it's more about being open to new ways. And so it's not that your preceptor is always right or is better, essentially. It's just be open to learn something new and different. It's more about being open to being adaptable and knowing that, okay, let's just see your technique and your way. And then quietly on my own time, I'll decide whether I like it or not, and whether I want to put it into my practice someday. And actually, one of the reasons why I love being with students as a CRNA is because those students pick up on other CRNAs techniques And then I see them and I'm like, oh, I like that. Like using, like, it just seems so simple, but it's awesome, is using a 10 cc syringe, pulling the plunger all the way out, and then using that 10 cc syringe to kind of stop your suction from hissing at you and put it underneath the pillow of the bed. So it's right there and ready to go when you're doing your induction. I mean, that seems so simple, but like I saw a student do it one day and I'm like, ooh, I like that. And again, they probably saw a CRNA do it and picked up on it and used it. And so again, being with students, I learn from my students different techniques that they learn from their CRNAs. And so yes, not everything your CRNA does is something you're going to like, or doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean you're wrong, but it's just a different way. And so it's more about embracing, kind of being uncomfortable and doing something that you're not used to as a student. And so someone who's been an ICU nurse for a really long time may have a harder time doing that. It doesn't always, most of the time it doesn't prove to be true. It's just a possibility. So I want to throw it out there. And so when you're in your interview, just make sure you make it known that you are willing to be a student again, that you're excited, you're ready to learn, that you know you're going to be a novice, that you know you're going to have to ask questions, that you know you're going to be taking advice from your preceptors who are younger than you, and you're ready for that. And it's not going to be a problem. No problem at all. So I hope that this episode helps you guys, or just essentially reassures you that, age is only a number. Okay. It's where you're at in your mind. And, whether you don't do CRNA or do CRNA, if you still have working years left and you want to be happy. So make that judgment call for yourself. Again, just know your numbers, be smart about it, but essentially follow your heart. If that's what you're destined and you want to do, don't take no for an answer. Do what you want to do, whether that's CRNA or something else. You want to make sure, again, even if it's only 5-6 years, I mean, maybe it's not CRNA, but maybe it's something else. You want to make sure you're listening to what you want to do, because who wants to be miserable in their career? Nobody does. And if CRNA, you're going to be happy and thrive, then by all means, high five, go for it. Anyhow, and also one last thing. I've also heard from my students who are on the, technically older side, or, maybe in their 40s or 50s or whatever you want to consider as old. I mean, I feel like I'm halfway to 40. So I feel like, it's just, age is just a number. But, sometimes it's almost like at a point in their life where it might almost be easier, not easier in the sense that school's hard for everyone, but let's just say their kids are grown and out of the house. Okay. So they don't have to juggle all the things that they were juggling when they were in their 30s, and younger with kids, because now their kids are adults. They don't have to, dress their kids or, white butts. So, there are some benefits of waiting till you're older to go back for school, like stuff like that. So that's just one more positive. So anyways, hope you guys have a good day, and we'll see you next week. All right. Bye-bye.